Dr. Ekta Bhushan, Assistant Professor, Indira Gandhi Institute of Physical Education and Sports Sciences, University of Delhi. Today we are going to study about human respiratory system. Human respiratory system is a network of organs and tissues that helps us breathe. The primary function of this system is to introduce oxygen into the body and expel carbon dioxide from the body. As defined, the human respiratory system consists of a group of organs and tissues that help us to breathe. Aside from the lungs, there are also muscles and vast network of blood vessels that facilitate the process of respiration. So, here are the features of the human respiratory system. So, first feature is the respiratory system in human has the ability to ignore the energy to produce the human breakdown of glucose metabolism in all the living cells, and these are the features. So, the first the main function of respiratory system is to inhale oxygen and exhale the carbon dioxide. We call it inhale and exhale. So, breathing starts when you inhale air into your nose or mouth. It travels down to the back of your throat and into your windpipe, which is divided into air passages called bronchi tubes. From your lungs to perform their best, these airways need to be open. They should be free from inflammation or swelling and extra mucus. As the bronchial tubes pass through your lungs, they divide into smaller air passages called bronchioles. The bronchioles end in tiny balloon-like air sacs called alveoli. Your body has about 600 million alveoli. The alveoli are surrounded by a mesh of tiny blood vessels called capillaries. Here oxygen from inhaled air passages into your bloodstream. After absorbing oxygen, blood goes into your lungs, then pumps it through your body to the cells of your tissues and organs. As the cells uses the oxygen, they make carbon dioxide that goes into your blood. Your blood then carries the carbon dioxide back to your lungs, where it's removed from your body when you exhale. So, now we are going to study about the different parts of the respiratory system. We can see the diagram of respiratory system also. In this diagram, we can see that we inhale the oxygen through our nose and our mouth, then it goes into the pharynx. You can see the pharynx also, then it goes to the larynx. This is also called as the voice box, and which produces the voice. Then it goes to trachea, and trachea divided into two bronchioles, which goes in one left lung and right lung. And we have two lungs also. In the lungs, we have lot of bronchioles and a lot of alveoli also. We are going to study about all the functions of these organs in details. Let's start with nose. Here we can see the nose. This is the nasal cavity and nostrils. From nostrils we inhale the air and it goes through the nasal cavity to the pharynx. Humans have exterior nostrils which are divided by framework of cartilaginous structure called the septum. This is the structure that separates the right nostrils from the left nostril. Tiny hair follicles that cover the interior lining of nostrils act as the body's first line of defense against the foreign pathogens. Furthermore, they divide additionally humidity from inhaled air. Now, we are going to study about the larynx. You can see the larynx also. This is the intersection view, the interior view and the posterior view also. We also call this as a voice box. This is the only organ which produces the voice in human body. So, the two cartilaginous cords lay the framework for the larynx. It is found in front of the neck and is responsible for vocals as well as aiding respiration. Hence, it is also informally called the voice box. When food is swallowed, a flap called the epiglottis folds over the top of the windpipe and prevents food from entering into the larynx. Now we are going to study about pharynx. The nasal chamber opens up into a wide hollow space called the pharynx. It is a common passage for air as well as for food also. It functions by preventing the entry of food particles into the windpipe. The epiglottis is an elastic cartilage which serves as a switch between the larynx and the esophagus. By allowing the passage of air into the lungs and food into the food pipe. Have you ever wondered why we cough when we eat or swallow? Taking while we eat or swallow may sometimes result in incessant coughing. The reason behind this reaction is the epiglottis. It is focused to open for the air to exit outward and the food to enter into the windpipe, triggering a cough. Now we are going to study about trachea. So you can see in the diagram, in the upward side you can see the larynx, and then after the larynx it starts the trachea. These are this seems to be C type of rings around the trachea, and then furthermore it divide into bronchi and then bronchioles. The trachea or the windpipe rises below the larynx and moves down to the neck. The walls of the trachea comprise C-shaped cartilaginous rings which gives hardness to the trachea and maintain it by completely expanding. The trachea extends further down into the breastbone and split into two bronchioles, one for each lung. So these are the bronchi which is divided from the trachea only. You can see here the trachea and lot of bronchi. The trachea split into two tubes called the bronchi which enter each lung individually. The bronchi divide into secondary and tertiary bronchioles, and it further branches out into small air sacs called alveoli. The alveoli are single coiled sacs of air with thin walls. It facilitates the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide molecules into or away from the bloodstream. Now we are going to study about lungs. You can see the picture of lung also. There is a trachea in between both of the lungs, and it is divided into two parts and adjoined with the lungs. We can see the left lung also and the right lung also. We can also see that the left lung is smaller than the right one, because there is an organ called heart in between that, and which is slightly tilted towards the left one. That is why we can see that left lung is smaller than the right one. And there are lobes also. In the left lung we can see only 2 lobes, and the right lung is it has 3 lobes. Lungs are the primary organs of respiration in humans and other vertebrates. They are located on either side of the heart in the thoracic cavity of the chest. Anatomically, the lung are spongy organ which an estimates total surface area between 50 to 75 square meter. The primary function of the lung is to facilitate the exchange of gases between the blood and the air. Interestingly, the right lung is quite bigger and heavier than the left one. The reason I have just told you before. Now we are going to study about the diaphragm. You can see the diagram of the diaphragm. The basic function of diaphragm is to support the lungs. It goes up and down just when we breathe in and when we breathe out. So breathing starts with a dome-shaped muscle at the bottom of the lungs called the diaphragm. When you breathe in, the diaphragm contracts. When it contracts, it flattens out and pulls downward. This movement enlarges the space that the lungs are in. This larger space pulls air into the lungs. When you breathe out, the diaphragm expands and reduces the amount of space for the lungs and forcing the air out. The diaphragm is the main muscle used in breathing. Now let's start with another organ called alveoli. You can see in the diagram also, alveoli are the small sacs which are located in the lungs and adjoined with bronchioles. This is the only organ where the gas exchange happen. In the diagram also you can see when we inhale, the air goes to the lungs, and when we exhale, the air goes out from our body through our mouth and nose. And in the alveoli, the gases exchange happen. We inhale oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. So now we are going to study about the respiratory tract. Here we can see the respiratory tract in human is made up of the following parts. These are the some more parts, and some of the parts which we have just learned. The first one is external nostrils. For the inhale of the air, these are the external nostrils which helps us to inhale the air. Then nasal chamber, which is lined with hair and mucus to filter the air from the duct and dirt. Then pharynx, it is a passage behind the nasal chamber and serves as the common passageway for both the air and food. Then comes the larynx, known as some sound box, as it houses the vocal cord, which are paramount in the generation of sound. Then epiglottis, it is a flap like structure that covers the glottis and prevents the entry of food into the windpipe. Then trachea, it is a long tube passage through the mid-thoracic cavity. Bronchi, the bronchio divides into left and right bronchi. Then bronchioles, each bronchioles is further divided into finer channels known as bronchioles. Alveoli, The bronchioles terminate in balloon-like structure known as the alveoli. Then lungs. Humans have a pair of lungs which are sac-like structure and covered by a double-layered membrane known as pleura. So, air is inhaled with the help of nostrils and in the nasal cavity. The air is cleansed by the fine hair follicles present within them. The cavity also has a group of blood vessels that warm the air. This air then passes to the pharynx, then to the larynx, and then into the trachea. So, trachea and the bronchi are coated with ciliated epithelial cells and goblet cells which discharge mucus to moisten the air as it passes through the respiratory tract. It also traps the line bits of dust of pathogens that escape the hair in the nasal opening. Then the moistal cilia beat in an ascending motion such that the mucus and other foreign particles are carried back to the vocal cavity, where it may either be coughed out or swallowed. Once the air reaches the bronchos, it moves into the bronchioles and then into the alveoli. Let's begin with the respiratory system functions. So, the first function of respiratory system is inhalation and exhalation. We can see the diagram also. When we inhale, our lungs expand, the diaphragm goes down, and when we exhale, the lungs strengthen and diaphragm goes upward. The respiratory system helps in breathing, also known as pulmonary ventilation. The air inhaled through the nose moves through the pharynx, larynx, trachea and into the lungs. The air is exhaled back through the same pathway. Changes in the volume and pressure in the lungs aid in pulmonary ventilation. Now, we'll see the next function, which is the gases exchange. In the lungs, inside the lungs, the oxygen and carbon dioxide enter and exit respectively through millions of microscopic sacs called alveoli. The inhaled oxygen diffuses into the pulmonary capillaries, binds to hemoglobin and is pumped through the bloodstream. The carbon dioxide from the blood diffuses into the alveoli and is expelled through exhalation. Now we will see the exchange of gases between bloodstream and body tissue. Previously, we have just learned that exchange of gases between the bloodstream and between the lungs. Now we are going to study about the bloodstream and body tissue, how oxygen become carbon dioxide in our body. So, the body carries the oxygen from the lungs around the body and releases the oxygen when it reaches the capillaries. The oxygen is diffused through the capillaries walls and into the body tissue. The carbon dioxide also diffuses into the blood and is carried back to the lungs for release. The next function is the vibration of vocal cord. We have just learned that the vocal cords are attached to the larynx, which is the part of respiratory system. Although the producing voice is not the part of respiration system, but the vibration of vocal cord happens in the larynx. That's why we are studying this also. So while speaking, the muscles in the larynx moves the arytenoid cartilage. These cartilages push the vocal cord together. During exhalation, when the air passes through the vocal cords, it makes them vibrate and create sounds. The next is this is olfaction of and or smelling. So this is one of our function of senses, which is smelling. How? Because nose is the part of respiration, and so during inhalation, when the air enters the nasal cavity, some chemicals present in the air bind to it and activate the receptors of brain on the cilia. The signals are sent to the olfactory bulb via the brain. Now let's see what kind of conditions that affect the respiratory system. Many conditions can affect the organs and tissues that makes up the respiratory system. Some develop due to irritants you breathe in the form the air, include viruses or bacteria that causes infection. Other occurs as a result of disease or getting older. Conditions that can cause inflammation like swelling, irritation and pain, or otherwise affect the respiratory system, that includes these are the problems. First is allergies. Second is the next one is infection, diseases, aging and damage. So let's start with allergy. When our body when our body has some kind of allergy, like which irritates our nose or something like that, which that inflammation which irritates our nose and can cause the respiratory system respiration. And then if somebody has asthma, the air pollution which can irritate that person and hinder the respiratory system. And then any kind of infection, the infection can be local or pulmonary, dysfunctioning, cough or sneezing like that. If something like that, which also hinders the respiration system. And then if somebody has any kind of diseases where direct breathing is concerned, like asthma, which also or disease like if somebody smokes or something like that, these are the diseases which can occur, which can cause the lung cancer. If somebody something like that, then also this hinders the respiratory system. Then comes the aging part. Lung capacity decreases with aging, because our lungs also decreased and the efficiency of lungs becomes loosened, and any kind of damage if happen to our lungs, that can cause the respiratory system. Now let's focus on how we can keep our respiratory system healthy. Being able to clear mucus out of the lungs and airway is important for respiratory health. To keep your respiratory system healthy, you should do these. I have mentioned some of the points which you can do to enhance your respiratory capacity. Now, in conclusion, we can see these points. The respiratory system consists of all the organs involved in breathing. These include the nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi and lungs. The respiratory system does two very important things. It brings oxygen into our bodies, which we need for our cells to live and functions properly, and it helps us to get rid of carbon dioxide, which is a waste product of cellular function. The nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea and bronchi all work like a system of pipes through which the air is funneled down into the lungs. There is in there very small air sacs called alveoli. Oxygen is brought into the bloodstream and carbon dioxide is pushed from the blood out into the air. When something goes wrong with the part of respiratory system, such as an infection like pneumonia, it makes it harder for us to get the oxygen we need and to get rid of the waste product carbon dioxide. I hope you all understood the respiratory system. That's all for today. Thank you very much. See you next time.